Rules of smart cities is complex systems, swarm intelligence. So there's a field of science called complex systems, and one of the things they study is swarm intelligence. So what they're finding is that the principles generally that apply to nature and how individuals in nature of a species interact, and also even between species, can be applied to many fields within human beings as well. So let's take a look at smart cities as an example. A lot of this involves artificial intelligence to model this increasingly in the future. So if you look at a flock of birds, thousands of them fly in complex patterns without bumping into each other, and there's no individual leader. So how do they do that? They follow a small set of rules, which have been identified as possibly three, which are that the first rule is that you should fly as close as possible to another bird without bumping into them or without having to slow down. And the second rule is that you should fly as fast as possible. And the third rule is that you should fly towards the center. So basically, out of three basic rules like that, it controls the flight pattern of thousands of birds at one time in the most efficient ways. And smart cities are similar to that if you think about it. I mean, the rules might be a little bit different, but the principles are basically the same. So smart cities also have no leader. Cities in general do. I mean, you have a mayor, you have government, but you don't have one person directing everything. People self-organize. They self-organize into businesses. They self-organize into neighborhoods. They self-organize into friendships. They self-organize into shopping. They self-organize into activities. So self-organization is, at varying levels, the core principle that puts a city together. It's the same as in a business. People organize into different roles. It's somewhat directed, but it's somewhat self-organized because people choose the roles. It's the same thing with a lot of companies like Facebook. It's a collection of all the organization of the content that people produce. So getting back to smart cities, what might some of these principles be? So a lot more research has to be done because it hasn't even really started in a significant way, but in regards to how AI can identify these complex systems in cities. But just on an intuitive level, if you think about it, smart cities and cities in general seem to be organized on a system, a set of systems related to the interplay between risk and reward. So it's always a trade-off. You have the risk and reward between safety versus isolation. You have space versus community. You have income versus stagnation. So everything that a person does in a city is meant to be a trade-off between competing opposites on the risk to reward dimension.